So here I just got a nice comment by Mr. Jason Baker talking about the Tower of Babylon. And I think this was a glorious tower and people and was destroyed by the controllers. And we always ask, who are the controllers? And in this case, the story is very clear who the controllers are. And that's God, or gods, plural. And I am a man of God. And here, what does it tell us? In Genesis 11, now all the earth continued to be of one language and one set of words. They traveled eastward and discovered a land of Shinar, and they began dwelling there. They then said, let's make bricks and bake them with fire, instead of stone and bitumen. And then said, let's build a city for ourselves, and a tower with its top in the heavens. And let us make a celebrated name for ourselves, so that we will not be scattered over the entire face of the earth. And I must agree, from the research we do, and now understanding the same things that these characters in the Bible understand, we would also have the same thoughts. Let us build a tower, so we'll not be scattered over the entire face of the earth. In a reset. Then it goes on to say, Jehovah went down to the city and the tower that the men had built. And Jehovah then said, look, they are one people with one language. Now there is nothing that they may have in mind that will be impossible for them. Come, let us go down there and confuse their language. So Jehovah scattered them over the entire face of the earth, and they left the city unfinished. That is why it is named Babel, because Jehovah confused the language of all the earth and scattered them in all directions. And very fascinating, especially where the Lord Jehovah is saying, come and let us go down. And he's clearly talking to somebody, and seeming to be a recurring theme. The biblical God or gods get upset when man gets intelligent, figures things out, going back to the oldest story of Adam and Eve, and the serpent telling us if we eat this fruit, we'll be smart. And the Lord didn't want us to eat the fruit. And just some thoughts to open up with. Welcome. And today I want to have a little look at the Philippines, at least for a minute. Personally, I have two wonderful Filipino friends, and I've never really dug into the history of the Philippines. All I know is they're an amazing culture, a very kind and caring people, from what I've seen. And here I want to jump back to this last video that I made on the St. Louis World's Fair in 1904. We were told there were people on display, including Filipinos, as seen here. So they made a reservation of 47 acres to display people, like a zoo. We're told 1,200 approximate Filipinos were displayed at the fair. The Philippine reservation at the exposition cost $1.1 million to create and operate. And this morning, I thought to myself, we'll have a little look at the Philippines. The history of the Philippines is believed to have begun with the arrival of the first humans using rafts or boats, at least 700,000 years ago. Already this story is stupid. And just really painting a primitive picture. I mean, just going way too far back. This would be like looking at the history of America and starting out with this same sentence. Just overkill and clearly trying to direct the mind in a certain direction. So we'll skip the part that goes back almost 1,000,000 years. And we end up with the Spaniards. Of course. Spaniards always arriving around the 1500s. And here in 1521, we see the beginning of Spanish colonialism. He established the first permanent settlement. They brought in Christianity, and conveniently, Spanish rule ends in 1898 with Spain's defeat in the Spanish-American War. And now we take over as Americans. And really, we're told Spaniards have been here for some time, converting to Christianity, and in a short 4 years after America rolls in, we're going to see a photo like this. And what I want to show today is whatever was going on in the Philippines was the same as it is throughout our realm, advanced. And what these people are trying to portray is a primitive Philippines. And what we see in their history is an advanced culture, and the narrative is trying to play two hands at once. Here in one breath, telling us these Filipinos were damn near savage, and when we look at the history of the Philippines and the actual architecture, we see signs of anything but primitive. And of course the Spaniards threw their name up here. And I just really wanted to see the exact moment where we roll in and rewrite the narrative. And this is it. 1898 and in 1904 we're displaying them at a fair and tacking on a pretty bogus historical narrative to their history and culture. And one of the first things I wanted to do is have a look at the Supreme Court in the Philippines. And here we go. The old Supreme Court building. Ah, yes. Just what we would expect. And the Supreme Court first met in 1901. Just no delay. We come in, and when I say we, I mean Americans. I was born in America, but my mother is French-Canadian, and my father was born in Algeria when it was a part of France. We stick a government in, designate this as a Supreme Court building, and we're told free elections began at the same time. So boom, Americans roll in, we have a government, we have a courthouse, telling a narrative and snatching up residents of this land and bringing them to St. Louis to be displayed at the fair. Unbelievable. So in 1904, these fairgoers are looking at these Filipinos on display, looking like this. And meanwhile, in the Philippines, we have buildings like this, being the old Supreme Court building, and buildings like this, and looking like anything else found throughout the realm. And I'm not sure what really happened, but I'm pretty sure that this is not the true history of the Philippines. And this country and its narrative and government totally being created by the controllers. And here I just received a comment by Yontron369, and they tell us, after watching a past video of mine, they were noticing that in between California and Salt Lake, in Spanish, it is written Island of the Giants. And I jumped on immediately, and I must be looking at the wrong map. I'll have to go back and watch that video and see if I can pick out what he was talking about. But here we can see Giant Island, so maybe it was around this region. An excellent find. And I had lost a map that showed this whole region that says parts unknown, labeled as Region of Giants. And if you have that map, please send it to me. But that would explain why we have this big void of uncharted territory. And here, of course, Quivira, always depicted in the same region. Perhaps the lost city of gold. And either they knew nothing about the Great Salt Lake because they couldn't explore this area, or it wasn't here. Perhaps the Salt Lake is the result of a giant blast which helped to fill in this Gulf of California and turn California into part of the overall landmass. We can see here this Francis Drake Point, and then when we jump over to this map, we see this Francis Drake Point clear up here. And no doubt this was the result of a past reset and great cataclysm, whether natural or artificial. But this also may be the Great Salt Lake depicted even when California was an island. I think that says giant right there, so not the best resolution on this one. And according to this map, one would have been able to sail from the Gulf of California all the way up to the Rockies, which would either be the Salt Lake or the remains of the old Lake Conibas. But now Salt Lake is a dead lake, no longer reaching the sea, and the closest river to take that path today would be the Colorado, as seen here, coming from Quivira. And just a little side tangent, but I thought it was really interesting. Thanks for that share. So here's how I see it right now. We have these 4 presidents on a site that was once called by the Native Americans the site of the 6 grandfathers. And when we look at older pictures, we do see what looks like another grandfather to the left of George here that look like an old wizard. And when I think of the Native Americans referring to anybody as grandfather, I'm thinking not the civilization before them, but the one before them. And who could have come before the Native Americans so long ago to be called grandfather? Well, there is talk in early times of the Vikings showing a presence in the Americas. And what do we see with the word Vikings? Everything, of course, being a little different than it seems on the surface. And here, if we see the word Vikings, we can also see the word or numerical value of 6 kings. And 6 kings sounds a lot more like 6 grandfathers. And when the Viking has been portrayed to us through our false indoctrination, they're typically portrayed as a savage. Horns, warriors, somewhat primitive. And yet when we look at the old world, we don't see signs of a savage or barbaric civilization. We see things that are more advanced than anything even conceived of in the present. And I often ask out loud, what would a people that build such beautiful buildings in the same fashion all throughout the realm look like? Again, not like a Viking, and not like a Greek or Roman in a toga, and not like any of these characters down here. No. No siree. And let's have a look at some tech now. So, this is something that's been shared today by a channel called Paul Cook. And what an awesome discovery he's found today. And as always, I like to keep things as short as possible and to the point. What he has discovered is, along with everything glorious that we typically find in the past, finally we're seeing how the advanced world may have powered things. And of course, all the research we do, we know that this was an advanced civilization. Why would they not have power? And we weren't seeing signs because we weren't looking in the right places. And this makes absolute sense. Why recreate a whole electrical infrastructure in the home and throughout the realm? Very dangerous source of causing fires when you already have a source of power, water. And water pressure, even according to our narrative, goes back as far as Rome, as we've discussed in past videos, plumb to the homes. And with this potential energy, we can do anything. And here in this depiction, we can see a miniature dynamo harnessing the water's pressure and powering this electrical device, an electric shaver. So that's it. I thank you for joining me today, and do have a blessed day. Please like, comment, and subscribe. I wanted to show you this apparatus one more time. A free power generating water turbine. As long as you have a water flow. Soon I'll be hooking this up. And I want to talk about a future video that I'll probably title Surviving the Reset or something like that. And a lot of fascinating things I have to share. One being a replacement for rebar, which would allow us to build concrete structures both above and below ground without the use of rebar, which would not fare well in a plasma reset situation. So this is very good news. And we'll also talk about fire and warmth. And lastly, natural things to eat, including wasp and hornet honey. And there we go. We have wasp honey. And here the mice have chewed away at the exterior, revealing the honey for me. And I will look at wasps differently now. Very fascinating.